Hang on to your seat and put on your helmet. It's the fastest hour on Portland Community Media. I'm Ansary, and you're watching Outside the Box, edition 342 for March 8th, 2015. Thank you for joining me. We've got a packed show tonight. We're going to be covering a lot of geopolitical, very important headlines and updates in the first part of the show. Then I'm going to talk about the larger picture that we face here on the earth with this corrupt world government structure and the need to focus on the spiritual individual shift in consciousness in order to escape our global enslavement. And I'm also going to show you a couple of interviews from my radio show on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, which is now back on the air. You can listen 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock West Coast time on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Also, those interviews are reposted to YouTube.com/AlexAnsary. Another announcement that I want to make, if I can remember what that happens to be. Oh yes, I'm still looking for office space in the Portland area in the range of about $300 a month. So contact me if that's something that you can help out with. Now, we're going to start our show tonight with a number of headlines that I have personally posted to ammedia.com. I'm going to make sure that you have the URL so you can find these headlines. It is amtvmedia.com. That's amtvmedia.com. I am a contributing poster to the website of Christopher Green. So if you bookmark or sign up, subscribe to the RSS feeds, the headline portion of that website are articles handpicked by yours truly. So more and more people know about the potential for the solar flare kill shot and how vulnerable the grid is, not only here in the United States, but elsewhere in the world. But the thing of the matter is, there has been no real money allocated to reinforce the grid. And nuclear power plants in the U.S. only have enough fuel for about a week. What does that mean? It's a disaster waiting to happen. We'll go into the article here. A couple researchers at the University of Cornell have determined that survivors of a zombie apocalypse should head west. And no, they're not talking about Portland, Oregon, the most gentrified city in all America. Both the have and have-nots moving here as fast as they can. No. We're talking about the American West. We're talking about the Rocky Mountains. We're talking about the Mountain Time Zone. We're talking about anywhere but a dense population center. If a zombie outbreak were to strike in the United States, those trying to survive should head west, according to a new report. The recommendations come from researchers at Cornell University. And it goes on, and you can read more about this over at AMTV. So there's information out there, and I think people are tapped into a certain degree psychically, although people pretend they don't know what's going on. But I have a feeling that a large chunk of our society is aware that something's coming. The problem is with TV shows and propaganda and predictive programming, people have become desensitized. And so it's almost as if some people want to see a zombie apocalypse, like it's funny, cute, something to write about in a comic book. We need to be listening to our higher selves and consciousness and understand that it almost seems as if people are being hypnotized by all this entertainment, all the rock music, all the stuff in pop culture. Just keep looking at the latest fad of the day. And in reality, we're just that much more closer, one day closer to this potential event that as a child I used to have dreams about. As a 6-year-old and 7-year-old and 8-year-old, dreams of a red sky. And as I became an adult, I have found many other adults that also foresee this event on the horizon. More things happening in the news. Fireball seen over the U.S. may have been a Chinese rocket. A fireball spotted streaking across the night sky on Monday in the western United States was almost certainly the body of a rocket used by China in December to launch a satellite. Residents in Rocky Mountain states such as Idaho, Utah, and Montana report seeing the rocket as it disintegrated in the atmosphere about 70 miles above the Earth. Now, in the last couple of years, I've seen more and more stories of Chinese satellites over the United States, and we've seen more and more stories of the Chinese buying record amounts of land. We reported on this show last week that the Chinese are the new investors of Portland's South Waterfront District. I have never seen the corrupt mayor of this town, of the Portland Mafia. I have never seen Charlie Hells so happy. His eyes, literally, he was sparkling. He was like, oh, I just can't wait to spend my money on a bunch of hookers. And it just like his eyes were lit up like he was on cocaine. But, when you've got a Portland mafia and real estate mafia, they don't care about the color in the city. They don't care about the hardcore effects of gentrification. You're going to see all kinds of private investors walking up into Portland. And as long as we, the Portlanders, are distracted by what's in front of our face and what's on TV, we're not paying attention to what they're really doing at City Council. And we should be. Portland City Council has a contract with G4S Security, which is based in London, tortures Palestinians in Israel. Their headquarters are on McLaughlin Boulevard. They may not be torturing Portlanders, but they're already here doing private contract work for Bank of America and other companies. It's a stepping stone. We're the frog being slowly boiled in water, but they're turning up the heat so slowly, we don't even realize that as a city, we're being cooked. Not to mention the smart meters, not to mention the geoengineering, not to mention the effect of the cell phone towers, and so many other things. Moving along. A U.S. Navy admiral says China outnumbers the United States in submarines. China is building some fairly amazing submarines and now has more diesel and nuclear-powered vessels than the United States. And there's more and more stories like this on so many different levels concerning the growth of the Chinese military. And then you look at this growing dependence that we're forced to have on China. By the way, the Hanjin Shipping Company, responsible for 80% of the imports and exports going in and out of Portland, Hanjin is now moving to Seattle. That's going to make Oregon more dependent on a Chinese shipping company moving into Portland to fill the void. Until that time, local businesses are going to get killed, and Walmart and Fred Meyer and Bi-Mart and all the big box stores are going to continue to make a profit as they knock out little businessmen by little businesswomen, one punch, one step at a time. Did you know that Russia is planning a manned flight to the moon, and that China as well plans to be on the moon by the year 2020, which is only 5 years away? Russia said it will continue to use the International Space Station together with NASA for 9 more years while announcing plans to begin manned flights to the moon by the year 2030. Not to mention that there is a plan to send humans to Mars beginning in or around the year 2023. Now, whether or not they're actually physically able to send humans to Mars, that's a different subject. But the news headline here is they're basically saying, hey, we're now at the level where we're going off planet. And the question is, what is the world going to be looking like in the post-2020 years, the way things are building up? And we're not very far away from getting the next puppet in the White House that will continue the agenda of the New World Order, to continue to weaken the United States and engage in moves and aggressive actions that by design turn the whole world against us, economically and militarily. My friends, you need look no further than September 11th, 2001, and how there was a global cover-up on the truth behind that event, as we have mentioned so many times in previous shows. And there is a global collusion agreement behind the world's largest superstates: China, the UK, France, the United States, Russia, and geoengineering programs worldwide. And if you go to googlenews.com, in fact, let's go ahead and do that right now. We're going off script. We are going to go to googlenews.com because I think you need to see this. See, if you go to Google News, type in news, some of you may be of the belief system that geoengineering doesn't exist. That certain things exist, but that's an issue that'll get you discredited. Oh no, don't talk about weather modification. You'll be considered a conspiracy theorist. Okay, we're almost there. Geoengineering. Here we go. Are you ready for it? Drum roll. There's a good and a bad way to geoengineer the planet. National Geographic. We've also got an article here on the New York Times. Here's the one for National Geographic right here. Look, physicsworld.com, geoengineering schemes to combat climate change. Here's another one, 4 reasons to study a bad idea, Forbes magazine, geoengineering. Here's another one from the Huffington Post. Oh, we can trust the Huffington Post. Geoengineering and the fight against climate change. So for most of my life, while presenting alternative media information in Portland and elsewhere, people like to say, hey, you know what? You're a conspiracy theorist. That stuff's not real. You make real activists look bad. And here we are in 2015, and it's being announced that, yes, they're altering the weather. But you know what? You can relax now. Have a cigar. You're going to go far. We're doing it to fight global warming. Well, wait a minute, Mr. Gore. I thought that you said that it had nothing to do with the sun, and this was all about man-made CO2 emissions. Meanwhile, NPR and the controlled media will bully and put down people that they call climate change denialists or deniers. Might as well call them a racist. Oh, yeah. The racists and the climate change deniers are together. Propaganda. Propaganda. Now they admit it. And now they say it is happening, but you can relax because it's there to fight global warming. So be aware of these things. Now let's go to the next headline. Military satellite explodes above the Earth. Now, whether this is caused by an increase in solar flares or whether it's caused by Chinese military satellites, we don't really have that answer. Why don't we have the answer? They're not telling us. So it's one or the two. Let's take a look at the story. It's being reported that the military satellite exploded after detecting an unexplained sudden spike in temperature, sending dozens of chunks of debris tumbling into different orbits around the Earth. So that could be caused by a comet. That could be caused by what some people think is a UFO, which really could be something else. That could be caused by a solar flare. And that could be caused by a Chinese military or Russian military or other military satellite. But they don't give us the full picture. So it's interesting how they're not really being honest with us. And maybe by design, keeping us on the edge of our seat. Meanwhile, we turn our attention to Israel. And by the way, whatever you're seeing between Obama and Netanyahu, I believe is staged. It's meant to look like they're butting heads in preparation for what's to come. Meanwhile, Israel asks U.S. Congress for another $317 million in addition to what they've already been given. Plus, they have Iron Dome. And you want to talk about Skynet. You want to talk about a artificial intelligence missile defense system paid for with U.S. dollars. Israel appealed to U.S. Congress asking American lawmakers to bankroll defense expenses to the tune of $317 million, according to Bloomberg. Meanwhile, it's being reported in Paris, France, that the city is swarming with drones. Of course, there's a lot of focus on Paris after the Charlie Hebdo shootings and all these attempts to use that to divide people, not necessarily over religion, but skin tone. Because there are more than a few people that are now acting on the Fox News and CNN propaganda. There's that now famous story out of North Carolina where 3 Muslims were killed by the man who literally said he got the idea from Fox News. And before that even happened, on this show, in my War on Islam Explodes episode, I talked about how this disinformation is by design to encourage people into violent action, specifically homicide. So they keep saying that there are these drones that are swarming Paris and things of that nature. They keep talking about this to strike terror in the population of the French citizens. But how do we know if these drones are actually being operated by terrorists and not being operated by some machine that's literally swarming the town with drones to create a panic? And in the next headline, former CIA contractor says we created ISIS. And there are so many former government officials as well as current government officials that are sharing this perspective with the world. And so it's really on the part of the independent thinking individual to go, hey, this is propaganda. This is a lie. They're obviously trying to invoke us into some sort of racist paradigm, into believing that we are being invaded by brown people and that we must prepare. The videos on YouTube are already going up, getting prepared for the ISIS terror attacks on the United States. And this is actually how, instead of censoring the web, instead of locking up truthers or freedom seekers or activists and putting them into a FEMA camp, you don't need to do all that. You need to pollute the mainstream media and aspects of the alternative media with propaganda so far on the other side of the moon that it creates some sort of a distortion effect. And that same concept of hypnotizing, oh, look at this, beforeitsnews.com, EUTimes.com, Social Fall, Total Disinfo, a new report from the Kremlin states, and we're living a day and age where people read stuff on Facebook and social media and they believe it. So, for those of you that are involved in conspiracy research, for those of you that are activists, for those of you that are researchers, it's important that you understand that there appears to be whole networks and syndicates of websites that are cranking out like a massive machine, fake headline after fake headline after fake headline. And people that should know better, that should know about the Pentagon's info wars, information war, propaganda programs, they should be a little more questioning, a little more suspicious of what they're being told from the mainstream media. And my God, how many weeks in a row are they going to say that white Western women are getting turned on by ISIS? ISIS luring women with kittens. To the point where some men are starting to think that the Muslims are getting all the chicks. And I'm telling you what, nothing could be further from the truth. So, this guy here, by the way, Stephen Kelly, talked to Press TV. He is my guest Wednesday. So this man you see in the left picture, I'm going to be speaking with him on AmericanFreedomRadio.com on Wednesday. It doesn't matter if you don't catch a show live. All you got to remember is what my YouTube URL is. That is youtube.com/Alex Ansary. Okay, so people should know better. But people are still falling for the propaganda. There's also an archive section at AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Just click Show Archives. Look for Outside the Box, year 2015. According to a new poll, the majority of Americans support ground troops to fight ISIS. At the conclusion of last week's show, I played you video of what looked like Iraq in 2003, where they were attacking innocent women, children, and civilians. And we here in the United States, many people have become desensitized to that. And during the Bush administration, during those years, you had a lot of people in Portland that were unified against the machine. And the post-2008 years, a lot of things changed with the public. There was almost a sense of belief that maybe we would go in a new direction. Maybe we would see the closure of Gitmo. Maybe we would see the curtailment of drones above our skies and innocents being murdered worldwide. But in fact, instead of seeing a curtailment, we've seen an explosion of that. And so now we see this mentality with Democrats and Republicans of coming up with their own conspiracy theory and just blaming it on the other party. You can't just blame it on the other party, because when you look at the votes in Congress, it's both Democrat and Republican. The reality is our system is under control, and we are under an evilarchy, not some patriarchy. Whites aren't in charge, blacks aren't in charge, Arabs aren't in charge, Asians aren't in charge. Hispanics are not in charge. No racial group is in charge, but they may use racial groups against each other to maintain racial division and to promote segregation, as well as integration. There's a lot of people freaking out in Europe that keep saying that Europe's being invaded by darker skinned immigrants. You know, one can't help but ask, well, hey, numbnuts, don't you think the government is engaging in policies to get the perception of races to fight over the resources that they control, as they control the media? And the media, of course, controlled by the same multinational, international corporations that control the pharmaceutical industrial complex, that control the military industrial complex, and related subsidies. Lockheed Martin, the Carlyle Group, Halliburton, and so many others. Those are the special interests that are controlling the perspectives that you're seeing on MSNBC. But how many people do you know out there that say that they're against war and say they're against suppression that will actually couch potato on MSNBC, letting Rachel Maddow, and other propagandists program their mind into a sense of conflict with this group, or a sense of feeling threatened, like someone's going to come and kill you any second. This group's coming for you. They're coming for your kind. They're coming for your color. They're coming for your women. They're coming for your men. And they are doing this. This point needs to be made. They are doing this to create a sense of panic. You can even call it a global psychic attack. And that's how they keep us from working together. That's how they keep us from actually changing our reality. By running multiple programs at the same time that deal with race, that deal with economics, that deal with whether or not you like the president, all these different things. And society is programmed to think that if you criticize one aspect of the system, then you must have hate in your heart. This is a time for people to start to see through the lies that may have kept them in chains like slaves all this time. And there are many slaves of many colors in chains in this day and age. But the greatest deception is the fallacy of believing that we are free. Okay, so we're going to go now to the other one. Father accuses FBI of setting up son in bomb plot. The father of an Ohio man arrested Wednesday for allegedly plotting an ISIS-inspired attack on the U.S. Capitol says his son is not a terrorist and was set up by the FBI. Very similar of what we saw in Portland, Oregon, when Muhammad was set up by the FBI to supposedly attempt to blow up the Christmas tree in downtown Portland in late 2010. In reality, it was an FBI operation, as it is with this. But regardless of that fact, Portland, Oregon has gone back into the JTTF regardless. The debt ceiling maxes out in a few days. We know we're going to extend this, just like they've done before. The question is, how long are they going to be able to extend this, and how long before people that have become dependent on the state, the government, before their food stamps are cut, before their benefits are cut, before their disability is cut. We are facing the potential of a massive recession in September of 2015 if this 7-year cycle of recession, there's a few people that came up with this, discovered this pattern that every 7 years we seem to go through a recession. And I also noticed a couple years ago how solar maximum seasons seem to correlate with recessions and depressions. And there's other people that have already done research on this, the links between the economy and solar flares. And the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta has also done a study on wild market decisions made by stockbrokers when there's a coronal mass ejection and a subsequent geomagnetic storm, all of which affects our thoughts, emotions, and feelings. Thus, it can affect market decisions. So debt limit maxed out in 10 days, clearing out some space here. This one's fairly interesting. Pentagon plans to host international robot competition. If we were to talk about robots and technology, if I were to keep you informed of the latest developments relating to what is happening with robotics today, it would be a daily 1-hour show. Hey Jim, how you doing? And so many other things are happening along the side of this, but let me go ahead and read this. Do robots need passports? The Pentagon's research arm will host 2-legged automatons from 5 nations, including China, alongside homegrown offerings in a contest to test their capabilities of helping out in a simulated disaster. And of course, you know that they've already made drones that can tase people. And I think in the future, you know how they're really going to sell the next phase of the robot police? Arming women with a panic button. So when they're sexually assaulted, they hit the button, The drone is dispatched that connects with their cell phone, and the drone will come and film what's taking place along with maybe tasing that rapist. So we will probably see the introduction at some point in the future as things become less safe. A robotic police officer that will come fly in with a drone that links in with the woman's GPS, and then boom, poison darts, taser, something in the ass of XYZ rapist. You're going to see massive popular support for it, especially if our cities implode and we see massive crime waves, which I think they're manufacturing. So problem, reaction, solution, the population will beg to be found by a drone, especially when man and woman is so divided today. Where do you think things will be in 5 or 10 years? We don't trust each other now. Have you walked the streets of Portland? Have you walked the streets of Portland in my shoes? That's a pretty important question. Because if you haven't, and you're only looking at it from your own tribalist perspective, as some do, then some people aren't seeing what's coming. They're not seeing their tribalism. They're not seeing the racism. They're not seeing the hatred and distrust in the streets. But I'll tell you what, boys and girls, men and women of the audience, it is very, very real. Are there social repercussions down the line? Are there repercussions for women's safety when men and women don't trust each other? Abso-friggin-loosely. Absolutely. Absolutely, Lucy. And that's exactly why they've divided us, because they don't want man and woman in harmony, in love. That's why there's so much propaganda. If they can break the male-female dynamic, if they can break the family, if they can make men feminine, if they can make women masculine, and I'm not saying that to be rude to anybody, but a lot of people are noticing the trends in society. They're trying to make boys girls, trying to make girls boys, and trying to keep us competing in the workplace for rent, for something that we'll never actually own. This type of way of life that people are living right now in Portland is toxic through the charts. It doesn't matter how much Kool-Aid you drink, though. It doesn't matter how many times you get together with your friends in the park at Laurelhurst or elsewhere and you go, "Kumbaya, me lord, at least it's not LA." It doesn't matter how many times you say, "At least it's not LA." We're only so many years away from that livability title being literally ripped from our hands. The question is, are you going to work to help make Portland a livable place in the future for future generations? Or will you just stand by and say nothing? Will you just keep your mouth shut and resent those that present an alternative way of looking at things, an outside-the-box perspective, if you will? Or are you going to support the people that are actually doing the right thing in this city? We all have things to ask ourselves. As we grow older, as we grow wiser, as we accrue more knowledge, information, and wisdom, what do we want to do with our lives? What role do we have to play in all of this? Are we really just victims, or are we and have we been the whole time co-creators of this reality? You know, there's a lot of people out there, we're going to play a great video in just a few minutes, that want to see this collective shift in consciousness. Imagine that. Imagine that. Oh, imagine that. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. But we have to stop waiting for the band to arrive. Dun, 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 dun. We're winning. Dun, 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 dun. We're unified. Dun, 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 dun. We're a crowd. We're a collective. Yay, we're a group. No. You have to first be willing to stand against the 99%. I don't mean occupy. I mean against the mass way of thinking. We're not talking about money. To be a philosophical 1%, to really question your own humanity, what your incarnation was all about, why you're living here, not only on the planet, but what you're doing in Portland. Are you really just here to participate in the animalism and feed and just suck off of whatever resources have not already been consumed to feed off the beautiful cosmic energies that seem to run through the city? Or are you going to contribute something higher consciously to this land that you have been privileged to live in or be born into? These are questions to ask ourselves as our world appears to be on fire. Gratitude is very important. Thankfulness, unconditional love, staying out of tribalism, staying out of racism, staying out of classism. And it's one thing to be in anger if it's righteous anger. But if you're duped into just being pissed at this racial group or this political group, or if you don't like people that don't like the president or blah, 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 then they've got you right where they want you. And so some people say, hey, let's just talk about solutions. Well, you can go ahead and talk about things that make you feel fuzzy, you know, and there's rabbits to pet, and there's cool things to do. There's rides, there's the Rose Festival, but it's not really solution oriented just to fulfill your body with the spirit of oblivion, to just get high off of having fun. There's work to be done. So in the solution process that some people say they're looking for, there has to be some sort of accountability with whether or not someone's being honest with themselves about reality, about themselves. So if someone's actually supporting dominators, if someone's actually putting their money, maybe a lot of it, in the direction of a global New World Order corporation, then they're not ready for solutions, because they still haven't addressed the solution of stop feeding the beast. Stop supporting dominators. Stop voting for people that drone innocent civilians. See, you don't have to get complicated with solutions. You have to start with, how do I stop propping up the beast system? Don't ask first for solutions to convince you to stop supporting something that's clearly draconian, evil, and genocidal. Because what that really does is attract negative karma to the person that rather keep their head in the sand. Going back to our articles. Ukraine's currency is collapsing. We've seen a 70% drop since the start of 2014. Not enough stories of what's happening to women over there. Anytime I read about economic collapses, I'm concerned for the young girls. I'm concerned for the women, because this is traditionally an area where a lot of women have been forced into the sex trafficking industry, plucked out of the Ukraine, and then some of them are just happy to be a mail order bride for some abusive son of a in America. And there was this one abusive son of a that tried to get me to be his in Colorado. He ironically had a mail order bride from Ukraine. So in so many ways, and I'm not dissing all people that may have looked overseas for a bride, because things are so toxic with the females in this current culture. Greedy, manipulative, hate-filled, especially in the city. And you have all these ways that men are demonized and distrusted and replaced by machines, cell phones, and the like. So I don't criticize all men that have gone that route, but there's a lot of Ukrainian women, there's a lot of women throughout the world, a lot of women in the Syrian refugee camps that have been forced into the global sex trafficking industry. Problem is, not enough people talk about it because it grosses them out to even know these things are taking place. So people that do talk about those things are very popular within today's society. Sometimes they're even exiled from society because people don't want to hear it. Regardless of whether you want to hear it, it's going to be reported here on this show, as it has been for years. The United States plans to deploy National Guard to Ukraine. So what you need to know is the United States is involved in suicidal death bros. Just bomb country, bomb country, bomb country, bomb country, bomb country, bomb country. And before you know it, America's invaded by China and Russia. Boom. And we're taken out of the game. EMP, solar flare, who knows how it's going to come. But I would warn thee against thy addiction to illusions that this is really about East versus West. This is not about East versus West. This is about the New World Order versus you. They covered up 9/11 together. They're altering the weather together. They share a DNA database in the sky together. Kumbaya, New World Order. Kumbaya. And they surveil the planet together. So every move, and we're going to continue on with very important headlines, everything that you're seeing is building and building. It's a pressure cooker. Do you think that the American troops, do you think that the Russian troops, do you think that the Chinese troops even know that this coming Third World War is staged? They're not. Most Democrats, most Republicans, most conspiracy analysts do not know that the coming Third World War is staged by powerful entities most humans aren't even willing to even attempt to comprehend. They rather stay in their little box and think that it's just a few thousand people that are all about this and that it's all about oil. There is something far more sophisticated at play. There's nothing nice about lying. And so when someone lies by omission and just props up, oh no, it's the East New World Order versus the West New World Order, they're completely omitting all those articles about the United States propping up the Chinese military, from missile technology transfers in the Clinton administration, going all the way back to Henry Kissinger in 1973, brokering major deals with the CCP at that time. So someone actually has to go into history to actually get this information. Russia is launching war games in 3 disputed territories. And so there are people on the edge of their seat that are terrified. And it looks to them, going back to the monitor, that World War III is about to start any day now. And in my opinion, that's not the truth. I believe that we're really going to see things kick off in the next decade. But these are things that are getting us ready for that. It's getting them used to the war games. It's building up hatred against the United States as those in control of our country are leading us over the cliff. You know, you don't just walk up into an alley full of 10 gangbangers, calling them some racial slur without adequate weapons. You know, what are you going to take an empty pop can and start throwing at some guy with a baseball bat? A baseball bat that you happen to have given him? Here's a bat. Here's a knife. Hey, I'm going to hit you in the head with this can. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? It's not going to be pretty. So how has common sense taken a leap to the moon in regards to this? You also know that Russia and the US FBI have merged their databases. The FSB and the FBI in the 90s were sharing databases on their dissidents. So this information sharing predates not only 9/11, but in some articles, apparently, predates even Oklahoma City. Going back to the article, I need to take a breather. But this is all at AMTV, media.com. Bookmark it, subscribe. Going to the next one, NATO ships prepare for war games in Black Sea. And going to the next one, Russian jets practice attack scenarios on NATO ships in Black Sea. And there's so many reports of Russian jets coming into UK aerospace, as well as aerospace of the United States, North American aerospace. And so we're getting used to these headlines. It's becoming commonplace. Russia is building a new aircraft carrier. Then there's Putin's approval rating, as it rises 86% in a new poll. And there's a lot of Americans that think that Putin is some sort of resistor of the New World Order. It's so sad to see so few people even care about what the Russians did to the Afghan people. There is this, it's like seeing red. Oh, I'm so angry. I'm seeing red. I hate my own country. I hope some other country kicks our ass. And that is the cherry on the propaganda sundae. I said 5 years ago this was going to happen on the show. I said the United States is hijacked by some criminal secret society syndicate. That's why 9/11 happened. It wasn't the Cheney-Bush conspiracy, folks. Okay, there are things that have been in motion before those guys were sperm cells in their daddy's you-know-what. Okay? And so Americans are being duped. American researchers are being duped. And they're being led by Pied Pipers at the top of the alternative media heap. And I think they're being led deliberately into some sort of a trap. So listening to certain voices out there that are pushing a certain narrative, especially when it's a pro-Russia narrative, especially when it's painting Putin as the good guy, I mean, that's a red flag that there's something perhaps more to know about the funding behind some of these really large alternative media outlets. So, it's not by accident that Putin's approval rating has risen 86% in new poll. Okay, I'm looking forward to this break because we are running out of time. France deletes evidence of sinking U.S. carrier in a drill. So all the world's superstate nations are unified. They're together on the whole Islamic threat. Oh my God, ISIS is in the sewer. ISIS is in the sewer, and they're recruiting rats to commit terror attacks against the United States. But meanwhile, Kim Jong-un tells North Korean army to prepare for war with the United States. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un reportedly told the army to prepare for war with the United States and its allies. Now, there's a lot of focus on this year 2020. And by the way, the next solar cycle is going to be after 2022, 2023. And I actually had a dream once where China took reins of the New World Order in 2021. I had that dream in Portland, Oregon during the banker bailout fiasco of 2008 and 2009. I do believe the staged world war is coming, and I do believe that Portland will be more affected than other places in America due to its proximity to the Pacific Ocean. And there's a lot of other reasons why I feel like Portland will be in the crosshairs of whatever is coming. I've always felt it. You know, I have this waking vision or nightmare of missiles raining down on the city and everybody rushing east. And during that time, the cartels, which will probably have a bigger strong arm in this region at this time, they're going to be working likely with the Chinese in the human trafficking operations that'll be underway in the U.S. at that time. And so America's not ready for this. And activists and even the conspiracy research community, they're not even looking at this. They're looking at this solely through the lens of a McDonald's straw. That is how deep their knowledge base is going. It's Putin and China maybe being the good guy, and then America being this great evil and monster who just did everything by itself. Let's not look at China. Let's not look at Russia. It's all about Bush, Cheney, and Obama. Yeah, that makes lots of sense. Yeah. Let's not look at China and their investments in Afghanistan. Let's not look at Russians raping Afghani women and throwing their babies in the fire. Let's forget about that. Putin's got muscles. Putin's smart. Putin, yeah, he really it's theater. I mean, I would be more entertained by a Blazers game than fall into this paradigm of these guys being genuinely against each other. So Iran's back in the news. And right on cue, Iran repeats vow to annihilate Israel. And now more people than ever think Iran is now a real threat. And they're making it look like Obama is gonna, and maybe he is. You know, this is all being done to destroy our country, just to bring it back down to that central theme here, by design. So what? Everything's being set up so in 10 years they can have a weapon? That's how they're portraying this to the people of the world. Drinking out of a little kid cup, by the way, keeps me youthful. It's the secret to my longevity. I'm now 35, but at times still look like I'm in my late 20s. It's all about the little kid cups. Obama extends sanctions on Russia, citing national security. Again, more kamikaze. Yeah, let's put sanctions on Russia. That makes lots of sense. Yeah, that's brilliant. This is really going to lead to a kumbaya, my lord. The New Age assumption rapture is here. Oh, the Pleiadians are going to clean it up. Oh, the aliens are going to fix things. Oh, Putin and Obama are going to dance. They're going to do a little bumping and grinding. We got a little twerking up in here. Going to the next one. So we have seen the rise of BRICS. China, India, Russia, and several other countries, Middle Eastern countries, Arabic countries. The world is split now. Everybody's getting into position. They're getting into position. United States on one side, China and Russia on the other. And everything they're doing right now in our country is being done deliberately to make us weaker and bring up the status and power of the other countries. All this is just another example. So, okay, put sanctions on Russia. Russia, other countries dump dollar. I apologize for the coughing. So does it make sense to say, hey, they're trying to prop up the dollar in the Fed? They're trying to prop up the dollar. Actually, it looks like they're killing the dollar. I don't know what articles you are reading. Everything that I'm saying and seeing is that they're trying to kill the dollar and maybe intentionally in the Fed so they can bring forth a new world order currency. Yay, we ended the Fed. Now we've got a microchip. Now we've got a one world order currency. We've ended the Fed, in the Fed, in the Fed, in the what? For what? To what? So I'm not pro-Federal Reserve. Of course not. But I think that it's all happening by design, and I think it's obvious. I think it's obvious that the actions that the United States is engaged in are suicidal actions, but you've got to think outside the box of this really being about Obama, even though he's the current president, because you're going to see things continue in 2016. Other charlatans are already amongst us, people like Rand Paul, people like Ted Cruz, that people in America that should know better, that are libertarians, actually believe that these guys are going to bring us the change that we want to see. Any of this sound familiar? Especially when you have these photo ops and their arms are outstretched and they're like, my peoples of America, I give a damn about you. I give a damn about you, peoples of America, just like my father before me. Speaking of Rand Paul, talking about Ron Paul. It is so sad to see so many people that know so many truths about how things really operate knowingly drink the Kool-Aid with both hands as they shake and just, yeah, give me Rand Paul. Give me Rand Paul. If he can't do it, nobody can. All right. United States threatens Russia with thermonuclear war over Ukraine. Again, brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. You want to talk about some MIT, Harvard brainiac stuff. Threaten countries with war that have weapons that could retaliate. Threaten countries that have armed and made deals with the North Koreans. Meanwhile, arm the North Koreans. Thank you, Donald Rumsfeld, with your corporation that gave North Korea a light water nuclear reactor in the 1990s. Thank you, George Bush Jr. and Sr. and your Carlyle Group for helping arm the whole world to the teeth. Thank you, Bill Clinton. Let me get down and give you fellatio. Thank you, Bill Clinton, for giving the Chinese the missile technology and launch codes. Thank you for trying to sell the Long Beach facility to Cisco as well. We thank you so much for helping to bring us on our knees and making our future children super soldiers and sex slaves for the New World Order. Last but not least, China warns the United States to stop using its proxy war against Russia. But it doesn't matter that they have more troops than us. It doesn't matter that China is being allowed to buy record numbers of land in the United States. Oh no, Obama and the past president and the future president, they're all doing this to make America stronger. Yeah, have another drink. Oh, sure, this is all real. Yeah, it's all real. So what I want people to understand is that I've connected some really big dots for you guys in the last hour. And I really intended to play you plenty of videos and other things, but once I started, I just kept going, and I'm glad I covered this. Please bookmark amtvmedia.com. That's amtvmedia.com. Click on headlines, and you're going to see the posts. And I'm posting about 10 to 15 a week at that website. By the way, it's been really warm lately in Portland. I'm enjoying the bright blue, skies that we're seeing. I'm probably going to stay in Portland at least another 6 months. I am looking for office space so I can do my daily radio show inside of an office space, not just my car or my trailer. So I'm looking to sublease. I got $300 a month to work with. If you can help with that, please email me at alex_ansary@hotmail.com. Trying to think if there's any other major announcements. Listen to American Freedom Radio, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, Central Standard Time. That actually Pacific Time. Well, we better go to a video. 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock Pacific Time, 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. So as you watch this next video, think not about what your country can do for you. Instead, think about what you can do for your country. Something like that. Don't think and pray for others to wake up as you watch this video and you start getting goosebumps and you start dancing and you start doing the woo 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 woo. No, I want you to imagine yourself getting off the couch. I want you to imagine no longer just being a consumer of media, but maybe creating media or supporting others that are creating media. I want you to visualize yourself becoming more human than what you actually are, and grounding, shedding out, and letting go of whatever robotic, apathetic attributes you may have developed, either because of the culture we live in or the actual very effects of living in Portland, Oregon. We're actually going to end the show now as I've lost my voice. I'm Alex Ansary reminding you, and we'll go to the video, the path to the ultimate truth and place of power still lies in one place, within. Good night, and I hope you enjoy the video.
Love and affection, complete protection.